Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Very good. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well,
Good.
thank
Will
you.
you please turn and introduce yourself to our jury?
My name is Raul S. Banasco,
Spell your last name for our court reporter.
Banasco.
Thank you, sir. And how are you currently employed?
A variety of ways. I am a full-time jail administrator in Travis County Sheriff's Office in Austin, Texas, as well as an adjunct professor, and I do subject matter prison expert in jail security consulting work.
Can you please give our jury a summary of different facilities, jails, or prisons where you have worked?
I started my corrections profession in the state of Florida at the Central Florida Reception Center in Orlando, Florida, as a corrections officer. Spent 7 years at that facility, moved up into the classification department as a classification officer, senior officer, and supervisor, in which I got promoted in 1995 to Polk Correctional Institution in Polk City as a senior classification probation supervisor, then went on to be the assistant warden at Martin Correctional Institution, maximum security facility in South Florida. And then after 3 years, got promoted to an assistant warden 2 level in Tomoka Correctional Institution, Daytona Beach for 5 years, returned on a lateral to Central Florida Reception Center, and got promoted to a warden at Hernando Correctional Center, Correctional Institution in Brooksville for women. And then shortly, about a year and a half, got promoted to headquarters to the Department of Corrections headquarters as Director of Staff Development. And actually going back, I was a corrections officer at Lake Correctional Institution as my first assignment in Orlando in '87, and then moved on to run jails for the next 20 years.
And what type of education do you have to get into that kind of career?
To get in that profession, to be a corrections officer, of course, you have to have a high school diploma. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology from Iona University, as well as have my certification as a public manager to the Florida Atlantic University Master's Program, have my master's in public administration through Florida Atlantic University, and also have my credentials as a certified jail manager through the American Jail Association's Professional Commission, as well as my corrections executive certification through the American Correctional Agency through Washington Professional Certification Commission as well.
How long have you been, even up till now, working in this field?
Over 41 years, over 4 decades.
And I know you discussed you're currently working a capacity in a facility in Texas, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is that?
I supervise over a jail population of 4,000 inmates and about 1,100 employees. It's the 5th largest jail in Texas.
When was the last time that you worked in corrections in Florida?
Okay, last time I worked in corrections in Florida was 2010 when I was separating myself from retiring in 2010.
That didn't work out too well. I see you're still here, right?
Now, 25 years, and then 6 months later, went back into the business.
From the time working in the Florida Department of Corrections specifically, did you become familiar in those capacities that you described to us with their department policies and procedures?
Yes, as a classification supervisor, particularly at the Central Florida Reception Center, which is Central Florida's hub, receiving almost 600 to 900 inmates a week from county jails and processing them out throughout the prison system, as well as my role as an assistant warden for 7 years and my wardenship and directorship. Very familiar. We all had to be familiar with warden assignments because we got moved when the agency needed you to be moved.
And Department of Corrections, that's a state-run program, right?
Correct. This is the 3rd largest state prison system in existence.
So those DOC procedures would be pretty consistent from facility to facility.
Correct. They're pretty consistent. Maybe some SOPs might change a little bit on the design and the age of the prison, but they all pretty much operate the same.
And you indicated one of them, correct me if I'm wrong, was the warden of Hernando Correctional Institution. And was that with youthful and adult women?
Yes, I had a population of 350 youthful offenders from the age of 15 to 21, as well as the adult women population as well.
Why is there a separate prison for youthful offenders?
Every Sumter Correction Institution is the one for men. In many cases, we have to sort of segregate the youthful offender population with the adults, particularly in that facility, those individuals that were in the youthful offender program. There's certain expectations. We provide them particular education programs when we have them necessary, as well as, keeping a standard for safety purposes. We want to keep them separated because of their age and often because of their behavior. Between the age of 14 and 26, the behavior is sort of different in the prison setting compared to the adults.
And that was going to be my question. So 14 to 26 is what the department considered a youthful offender?
Yes, in the industry, that population, even though they are sentenced to an adult prison, I'm not a professional psychiatrist, but knowing the business, that's a very rambunctious. They're at a point in their life where they're still maturing. We tend to see that population have more disciplinary reports, more egregious behavior, more fighting that you have to deal with in that population versus the adult, that they're more settled and mature once they settle in.
And you also, as part of your career, you worked with as a juvenile case manager up in New York at some point, right?
Correct. I did 2 years with 2 contracts, one with Hawthorne Seed Knolls, which was mental health juveniles, as well as the other ones with juvenile group home children, my first employment in social services. Yes.
Based on your past work and experiences, I think I already asked you, you're familiar with the policies and procedures of both jails and prisons, specifically in Florida?
Yes.
And since it has been some time since you physically worked in the building, how do you keep up to be able to educate us on the policies and procedures of the Department of Corrections?
Well, it's been a while, but actually always a corrections officer at heart. In my current assignment, I walk the units and the compound on a weekly basis. Also keeping up with the Department of Corrections, particularly, still have a lot of friends and family members who work in the agency. So keep up with that way, but also keep up with the annual reports, as well as some of the changes that the agency goes through, as I'm familiar with a lot of the current leadership in different capacities because I came up with them, but keep up abreast with all the current changes going on that they have to publish as well in the agency website.
Okay, so in a little bit, I'm going to ask you about some specifics regarding life without parole and death row inmates in Florida. So are you able to give the jury that information based on what you've just described as far as how you keep up with those policies and procedures?
Yes, I am.
And before we get to that, so you're working now, other than what you've described in Texas, but you're testifying here today. Is that more in a consultant capacity?
Yes, it is.
What does that mean?
Consultant means not in my work capacity is my role now, take actual time off with consulting. We tend to always do this kind of work for retirement purposes. And I take on cases, either resentencing cases, penalty phase cases, even some civil cases where there's some wrongful death involved, either for the agency's defense or for the actual plaintiff as well.
And I assume you're not doing that work for free. Can you tell us how much you charge per hour?
No, my fees are $200 an hour to interview, review records, as well as $225 an hour to testify and $110 to travel time as well.
And that all gets approved when we get you onto a case?
Correct. Everyone that I work with, regardless if it's private or government, there's an agreement and that the hours are authorized in advance.
And have you previously testified in court before in that capacity?
Yes, I have.
And do you know approximately how many times?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if I could ask just what capacity, because we covered a lot of.
Sorry.
Thank
As
you.
a consultant.
As a consultant, over 55, 60 cases,
And was that in state and federal court?
state and federal, as well as county as well.
And was that just in Florida or anywhere else?
No, I've done work in South Carolina, the state of Georgia, Texas, Florida, of course, even done some work in Louisiana as well.
And have you always been allowed by those courts to give an expert opinion in the area of corrections policy, practices, and conditions?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would ask that the court allow Mr. Bonasco to give his opinion testimony in the areas of corrections policy, practices, and conditions.
You should find your witness this time.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have you ever consulted on cases for the prosecution or state attorney's office?
No.
Okay, now I'm going to get into some specifics. We talked about the difference between a life without parole sentence and what a death row inmate. Let's start with life without parole. Throughout your lengthy career in corrections, have you become familiar with how inmates serving a life without parole sentence are housed in the Department of Corrections?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and can you tell us physically how they are housed?
Well, all my assignments in the Florida prison system were all at lifer facilities, so I'm very familiar with that layout. What happens is an individual who is sentenced to the Department of Corrections, particularly like in this case with Ms. Gathright, he will go through a reception center process. He will be given an inmate number. That inmate number will remain with him for the remainder of his sentence while in the prison system. They will then be transferred after 6 to 12 weeks, in which they go through a reception process. They have to see all components, medical, mental health, social services, and classification, and we assess their custody level, and then we will assign them to vacant beds throughout the prison system. When that individual were to be received at a facility, let's say Tomoka Correctional Institution, which is a lifer facility, holds all custody levels to close, that individual will be classified and assessed based on their skill set, their behavior, their prior behavior, whether it's in the county jail or in another system, in another agency, and then determine their housing assignment, determine their job assignment, in which every inmate that is serving a term of life will always have to be assigned a job assignment. So what that means is every inmate serving a life sentence is required to work up to 60 hours a week, whether it's cooking meals, preparing laundry, pushing about 100 lawnmowers, gasless, of course, keeping up with the day-to-day maintenance of that prison. That is a requirement, as well as following all the other rules and regulations as required by the agency.
So part of the classification, and I know probably just out of habit, you said we, you obviously aren't working there
Yeah,
anymore, but
department.
the department will find a facility where Mr. Gathright would be the most useful
Yes.
and
Yes.
fit in the best?
Yes.
And also they have programs and things you mentioned, right?
Yes, they have programs.
Can you explain what a typical day in the life of an inmate serving life without parole would look like, since they are required to work? What else does a day look like?
A typical life for an individual inmate serving in the Department of Corrections is they're woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We do a secure account. At that time, we will escort them to their appropriate chow hall, which is where they eat their meal. They have up to 10 minutes to sit and eat their meal. They will return back to their housing unit, in which we will conduct another count, and then we will allow them to go to the day-to-day operations. So inmates have work assignments. They are to report to their work assignments as scheduled. If they have call-outs for medical, classification, case management, they are to be accounted for, and we will go through the same process 3 times a day. So closer to the noon meal, around 11 o'clock, everyone will fall into their assignment. Those who are working, regardless of where you're at, we will do a count. We will go through the lunch meal, and then we'll repeat it again around 4:30 approximately in the evening, so we can make sure everyone's accounted for. Then they return back to their housing unit, and after dark, they are all secured in secured housing, and no inmates are allowed to be out of those buildings unless there's an emergency with proper security, shackles, and handcuffs to whatever assignment they have to go. Otherwise, they remain in those housing units till the next day, in which it is repeated again.
So they're not just roaming around the prison all day. looking for
Absolutely
things to
not.
do.
They're told when to do, what to do, when to do it.
I didn't hear you mention a shower. Do they get to shower?
They get to shower. We are required by accreditation standards to give them a minimum of 3 showers a week. But because those individuals are in an environment where they don't have their own showers, it's based on who the population is, usually about 250 inmates for like 7 to 10 showers. So they're sharing spaces.
And I don't know if you might have mentioned this, but the housing itself, are they in a dorm style, or what does their personal housing look like?
Their
Or
personal
room?
housing is, Department of Corrections, we know it as HO5 and HO4 housing. That's the housing assignment we give individuals who are serving a life sentence. And HO5 is an individual cell that's designed with 2 men in it. That's more the old prison style. Like I worked at Tomoka Correctional in Polk, old prisons, because of the design at the time. Because we've had individuals serving life, we also code them, the Department of Corrections codes them as HO4. HO4 is the same type of secure housing, but these individuals are more in a communal environment, almost like a military style. The integrity of the building is still designed to hold lifers, but because a lot of the old prisons, the footprint is very antiquated and very manpower intensive. We have other type of industry standard housing, so, but they are in an HO4 status.
If someone is sentenced to life without parole, meaning they're not getting out, is there any incentive for them to follow the rules while they're in prison?
Well, every inmate in the Department of Corrections is required to work. And if they do not show up to work, even those who are medically indigent, they're required to work. They will face administrative outcomes, basically receive a disciplinary report for refusing to work. And if that continues to escalate, we move them into another level of status based on the classification and their negative adjustment in the prison setting.
And what would be their incentives to follow the rules other than just where they're housed? Do they get any benefit for following the rules?
They would have their privileges not revoked. Privileges such as family visits, commissary, inmate tablets, access to the TV, those even access to programs. Those are the privileges in which they have to follow the rules in order to keep them.
And so you indicated that they are required, those inmates will be required to work 60 hours a week, and even if they're disabled. Is it safe to say that prison can be made even more comfortable for a person, or uncomfortable, sorry, if they refuse to work or they're not following the rules?
Yes, in the system, it's designed, if they continue to refuse to show up to work or their assigned area, they will get disciplinary reports. As they continue to escalate those disciplinary reports, then they will be considered for close management. And what close management status is, those individual inmates in the prison system that are not following the rules, they become a security concern, not only for the other inmates, but the day-to-day operations, at which time the institutional classification team will review them, place them on a docket, as they say, to be reviewed by central office and move to a facility such as Santa Rosa Correctional Institution, Martin Correctional Institution, Columbia, to name a few, in which they house close management 1, 2, and 3 statuses. These individuals, for the most part, are locked in a single cell by themselves. They don't have any privileges, just to see medical every day, as well as their meals, and not even but twice a week get uniform and allowed out of their cell 3 times a week. They will remain in that status till they start complying with the rules and regulations, in which they will eventually, hopefully, move out of that status if they start conforming to the rules.
And you gave some examples earlier. I just wanted to follow up some of the things that inmates do in the way of work at the prison. You included cooking, is that right?
Yes, we have to prepare 3 meals, as well as even dietary meals for the inmate population. So we use a lot of the inmate labor to do all the meal preparation, as well as keeping up with sanitary requirements. We have to launder all the food as well. We have also inmates, the department has to assign inmates who have skills in maintenance, because the Department of Corrections utilizes 80% of the inmate labor to keep up with the aging facilities that the prison system has. That's something on a national level. We put them to work. They do not have any kind of financial compensation. They're required to. We also keep up the grounds, as well as utilize them in different capacities. Those who might have a high school diploma might be part of the orientation for the new inmates coming into the prison system, sort of like a peer-to-peer, helping those, particularly those coming in with a term of years, to hopefully take advantage of the programs and not return back to the prison system.
You mentioned yard work. Do they do painting, electrical work, things like that based on their skill set?
They do plumbing, painting, electrical. Keep in mind, they're under the supervision of what we know as a vocational instructor, so they're not freely having any access to tools. They're always supervised. Because of a prison design, things do break down at night, so sometimes, depending on the skill set, staff is dispatched, or even the corrections officers have to supervise them to keep up with these repairs. Wastewater treatment programs, some of the prisons in the Department of Corrections, I know personally, have been assigned in places where we don't have direct water access, so we have our own water and treatment programs, so we have to keep up with that as well.
You indicated that the inmates themselves don't make any money or commissary off of that work, is that right?
No.
Would you say that they save the Department of Corrections in the state of Florida money?
Yes, they do.
Because you indicated, I think, what, 80% of the work done is done by inmates?
Yes, I mean, keeping in mind, we're talking almost 80 prisons throughout the state of Florida and the aging buildings that they have. If it was not for the inmate labor, it would be quite challenging and financially a challenge to the agency to keep up with all the repairs.
Do they do anything that they can contribute outside the prison? Is there any work? I know, and this may be like way old school, we'd see inmates making like license plates. They probably don't do that anymore, but are they doing anything for people outside of the prison?
And actually, they still do license plates.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. In my years and still to this day, we have different events. So actually, we use inmate laborers who might have some carpentry skills. They actually do a big thing every year in different agencies throughout the United States for Toys for Tots. We also use them to create the inmate uniforms, their inmate boots. We keep up also refurbishing of vehicles. When I worked at the women's facility, the women there did the eye contacts and the dentures for the prison system. So we utilize them to work through our partnership through PRIDE, the Prison Rehabilitative and Industrial Enterprise company that is a partnership. We put them to work with this particular partner to keep us sustained and also cost saving. They also do the furniture at Polk Correctional Institution. For those agencies that want to buy furniture, there's a furniture factory there as well.
And PRIDE, I think you said, is it Prison Rehabilitative Industrial Diversified Enterprise?
Yes,
That's a mouthful, but okay.
it's a lot.
So an inmate sentenced to life without parole, would you agree, is a resource for inside the prison as well as society in some cases?
Yes.
What about, you talked about visitation and some incentives for following the rules. What are inmates in prison allowed to communicate with people on the outside, and if so, how?
Yes, they are allowed. There's the new industry standard. Typically, they can call on the phones in which they can call out, but also we have tablets. It's the new industry standard. Inmates are assigned a tablet in which they can either do video visitation in some facilities and even text in a secure server to communicate with their family members as well.
And I assume that's all monitored by the department.
Completely, yes.
And is it free to the inmate?
No,
The tablet's free, but the communications aren't, is that right?
correct. There's a fee for the text as well as any kind of communication with outside folks.
Now I want to move on to talk to you a little bit about if someone's serving or they're sentenced to death and they become a death row inmate in Florida. How is an inmate on death row housed physically?
Physically, when you're housed in a death row environment, particularly at Union CI, go there often, they're housed in a 6x9 cell, single person housing with a mattress, their assigned TV, stainless steel sink and toilet, as well as our provided services. They also, 3 years ago, changed the process in which now inmates on death row also are allowed and issued a tablet, as well as they're allowed a lot more time out of their cells as historically, and also have family visits. Their food is delivered to them and their uniforms are delivered to them, but they're not required to work.
Let me just take those a little bit one at a time. So you said the TV, do they have their own TV?
Yes.
What about the inmates that are serving life without parole? Do they get their own TV?
No, each side of the dorm or each pod or quad is, depending what you call it, the department has to share a TV in that environment. So there's often fights and stuff, but they basically amongst the prison population have to determine what channel of the limited channels they can see.
But somebody that's on death row will have their own TV?
Yes.
And do they go to the chow hall to eat, or you said they get the food delivered to them?
Their 3 meals are delivered to them on the row.
Do they do their own laundry?
No.
So somebody else, the inmates that are working, do their laundry and bring it to them?
The inmate laundry is done by the inmate laundry trustees, as we often call them, and they will be delivered on a weekly schedule, exchange their uniforms.
And I believe you said that they are not required to work. Are they able to work?
They're able to work, but they're not required to work.
Do inmates sentenced to death contribute to the prison workforce in any way?
No.
So let me turn your attention to Mr. Gathright, Sean Gathright. Did you have an opportunity to meet with him?
Yes, I did.
Okay, do you recall when that was? And you can look at your notes if you need to.
March
refresh.
1st, 2026 at the Hillsborough County Jail.
And what was his demeanor just generally when you met with him?
Very pleasant, a young individual who was very articulate. We spoke, he was very respectful, had a good meeting with him.
And I assume you know that he's relatively young, at 20 years old right now.
Yes, he was booked at the age of 18, he's 20 now.
Did you learn through records provided by my office that Mr. Gathright was a high school graduate?
Yes,
Let me ask you a little bit about that. You mentioned earlier in your direct about somebody with an education. Certain inmates can maybe be kind of mentors or peer-to-peer. I think you described it, working with inmates that are serving a term of years, meaning they are getting out of prison. Do you think that Mr. Gathright would have that ability if he were serving a life without parole sentence?
he would have that ability. Of course, classification, we'll have to look at his behavior, but the fact that he does have a high school diploma, that is one of the requirements to be an inmate student aid, because they're helping other individual prisoners obtain some kind of education programming, so they have to have a high school diploma. So he does have the credentials to be considered for that type of work assignment.
And as you said, when he gets to classification, somebody there will make all these determinations once they evaluate him physically, mentally, behaviorally, all of that stuff, right?
That's correct.
And based on your previous work as a classification officer, you feel comfortable saying that he could potentially be in that role?
Based on my experience and 4 decades, someone who I met and got the opportunity to speak to, and his current housing assignment, he has the potential to be considered for an assignment like that once in the prison system, but that would be over a period of time. Every inmate who's brought into a permanent prison will have to go through a period of observation, and usually they start on the inside grounds for the first 3 to 6 months, and depending how well they do out in the heat and behave and follow the rules, then they can be considered for other positions which have more responsibilities or level of trust, but always supervised by staff.
And in the Department of Corrections, are there also what you consider faith and character facilities?
Yes, that is a new industry standard in the last 5 to 7 years. The Department of Corrections has quite a few of those that are spread out throughout the state.
And what do they offer to an inmate serving? Well, I assume they don't include death row inmates, but if somebody's serving life without parole, what would that mean?
Anyone in the prison system up to life is eligible to be considered to go to that facility. For example, you have a Sumter Correctional Institution, Everglades Correctional Institution, but you have to show a 2-year record of following the rules, no disciplinary reports, no kind of security concerns, just to be considered. There's an application process in which they will have to go through, because these facilities, they're also known as incentivized prisons. So they only want those inmates who are respectful, following the rules, and not going to be a security concern.
And based on Mr. Gathright's age, physical abilities, things like that, do you think that the prison would benefit from him in a work capacity if he were sentenced to life without parole?
I say yes. With my experience, not only just in classification, but as former warden and even as a jail administrator, he's someone that's young, he's healthy. In reality, we need that labor, we need that sweat equity, and we will put him out there to work, because we do have an aging prison population, jail administration. We have that. So we put these young individuals to work and get some sweat equity out of them, since they are young and actually can do the work.
And I know we talk about life without parole and death row, but for our jurors' education in Florida, what does a life sentence without parole mean?
A life sentence in the Florida Department of Corrections means from the minute they're brought in, they're assigned an inmate number. He will be assigned an inmate number, and when he dies and leaves in a body bag, he will still have that inmate number. An inmate serving life will never, ever get out. There is no parole in the state of Florida, and they're not ever allowed outside the razor wire and the fence of a secured facility.
So the only way that an inmate serving life without parole would leave is when they die by natural causes.
Objection, Your Honor, we're asking that.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may I have a moment?
Yes.
I'll talk to the witness.
Okay, very good. Mr. Herman?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Bonasco, you throughout your testimony have been using the term "we" when you're talking about the DOC. You keep doing it. You're no longer employed by the Florida Department of Corrections, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And you separated from a corrections job here in Florida in 2010, but that was a county corrections
Correct.
job, correct?
Yes.
You separated from the Department of Corrections in 2006,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
All right. So it's been 20 years ago since you have worked as an employee of the Florida Department of Corrections.
That is correct. Yes.
Since you have stepped foot into a correctional institution in this state as an employee, right?
Yes.
Now, you've talked about you have previously testified as a consultant, and I believe counsel asked about your expert opinion in corrections or in security, corrections security.
Corrections, security operations, anything to deal with corrections, detention, prisons, and jails.
The 55 times that you've testified, that is included testifying in civil cases, correct?
Yeah, a handful, yes, sir.
Testifying in cases where people have filed lawsuits where someone's been injured or hurt in a jail or in the prisons.
Yes.
That's included testimony in non-capital criminal cases.
That's correct.
When did you start testifying in criminal cases?
In criminal cases?
Yeah.
Oh, it's been
Criminal
over
cases.
10 years. But
Over 10 years.
Mhm.
All right. And you didn't start testifying in cases like this, penalty phase of a capital murder case. You didn't start doing this until about 5 years ago, right?
approximately 5 years ago, yes.
So how many times have you come into court in a penalty phase setting like this and testified?
Over 40 times.
In a penalty phase?
In a penalty case, about 20 cases.
Over the last 5 years?
Yes.
You were asked about the typical day in the life of a person who has been sentenced to life without parole here in the state of Florida, right?
Yes.
In the prisons, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that when the person is sentenced and they're transported, they go to a receiving facility, correct?
From the county jail?
Yes,
Yes, they go to a reception center.
a
Yes.
reception center. And then, I don't know, are they classified there or do they go to some other facility where they go through classification?
No, every prisoner goes to the reception center and they will classify them and assign them to a permanent prison.
To a permanent prison, right? And that's done by a classification specialist of some type.
Classification officer along with their classification supervisor.
And once they get into a prison, when they're assigned to their prison, they will be observed and they will be watched and monitored and documented, as you said, as they go through their day-to-day activities, correct?
Yes.
Over the course of the time that they're in that facility, right?
Yes.
And at about 6 months approximately, they're going to be reevaluated, right?
Right. Anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Now, of course, to clarify, if they're not adjusting well, they will be reassessed sooner
Right.
than that.
But they're, okay, that's true. Okay, if they commit some offense or they violate some major rule or they start accumulating DRs, disciplinary reports, that may accelerate that classification or reevaluation. Is that right?
Yes.
But at some point, even if they live spotlessly clean, follow all the rules, they are a wonderful inmate, they do everything right, they're going to be reclassified at some point within a year.
Well, particularly in this case, when you're serving a life sentence, at a minimum, you have to have an annual review. So basically, they have a reassessment annually just to make sure they're keeping up with their behavior and touching base with any needs as a case manager would do.
Right, and I misspoke. They're not necessarily going to be reclassified, but they're going to be reassessed, reevaluated.
Yes,
And that's done by a classification team or a specialist in that facility.
right. The classification officer will review them, and then the paperwork goes to the institutional classification team.
So if a person is sentenced to life without parole for a capital murder, like in this case, same kind of charges we have in this case, and they go up to the reception center, they're normally going to be sent to a facility, correctional institute, and they're going to be at a fairly high level of security level, right?
Every inmate serving life will be nothing less than close custody.
Close custody, right. And once they've been there for 6 months, 8 months, whatever it takes, if they're following the rules and they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not accumulating DRs, they're going to be reevaluated, right?
Correct.
And there may be modifications to their job assignments, correct?
Correct, based on institutional needs.
Institutional needs, right. And you said that most likely if someone is sentenced to life, the first thing they're going to be doing is probably pushing a mower outside, working outdoors, doing some kind of manual labor, right?
Correct. Inside grounds is the go-to assignment. It's in the heat, and that's where we need the most labor
Right.
to get things done.
And a lot of these facilities, even the ones in North Florida in the summer, they get pretty hot, don't they?
Every one of them.
So they're going to be out there in the heat getting pressure tested as far as their ability to maintain what they're supposed to be doing their jobs, doing it right, being disciplined enough to follow regulations, right, and rules.
Yes.
And again, that's something that's being assessed over time, right?
Yes.
I was trying to find the term you used, a period of observation, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you work in Texas, is that correct, sir?
Yes, I do.
In Austin, right?
Yes.
What county is that? Tarrant County? Is that
No,
right?
that's Travis County.
Travis County. You did work in Tarrant County.
Tarrant County's Fort Worth. Yes.
Fort Worth. And you also worked in San Antonio.
Yes,
Is that
Tarrant
right?
County.
And you worked in St. Louis for the
Correct.
jails up there, correct?
For 10 months.
You worked
Horrible
in
experience.
Osceola County,
Osceola Jail Commander in Orange County
and
Corrections
Orange
as the
County
major.
Corrections. You've had a lot of corrections jobs where you've worked for about 2 to 4 years and then moved on to other jobs.
No, the agency, the department, I was on 19 years, did 2 years with Orange County Corrections, promoted to Osceola County, did my additional 2.5 years, and retired.
That's when you retired out
Retired.
of 2010.
Had to deal with the unfortunate escape and fire folks, and my mother was in hospice. And then actually, just to clarify, then went on to work with Bridges of America for 2 years, which is a reentry program that contracts Department of Corrections for 2 years. And then I was tapped on to be the jail administrator in Bexar County for almost 4 years. And individuals like myself, we serve at the will. So the elected official sheriff was not reelected. So the administration that's appointed has to find another opportunity in which the sheriff in Tarrant County asked me to be the jail
Okay.
administrator.
I thought you said Bexar County. You said
Bexar,
Bexar County.
Mhm.
Okay. And those are in Texas,
that's in San Antonio, yes.
San Antonio. And Tarrant County is which major
Fort
city?
Worth.
Fort Worth. All right. But you work in Austin, but you live in Tallahassee, correct?
Correct. I commute every few weeks.
Have
My
you
home
done-
is in Tallahassee.
Have you done that through all your jobs in Texas?
Yes.
Kept your residence here in the state
Well,
of
yeah, because
Florida?
my wife and family reside on and off in Florida. So I even did it when I went to St. Louis, did 10 months, but my family didn't relocate to that assignment.
So you were in St. Louis for 10 months, for less than a year?
It's a tough assignment. That's all I wanted to do was 10 months in St. Louis.
And in addition to doing that, as you told counsel when she first asked what you do, you started consulting, right?
I've been consulting since 2000. I'm a national American Correctional Association national and international auditor. I've done over 300 prison and jail inspections in state.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was talking about consulting in legal cases. I
Okay.
should have been more specific.
Okay.
At some point, you started consulting in legal cases.
Correct. It could have been
Okay.
2014 is when I started doing more of the legal side of it.
So when getting back to what we were talking about, when you worked in the DOC, you either trained on or you supervised the people who were doing these classifications, correct?
Yes,
The teams, the classification specialists or coordinators.
all that.
Fair to say that? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And like we were talking about earlier, they're reviewing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the security level for that person or
Correct.
the custody level?
Yeah, what happens is we review, first of all, the term that they're sent to the prison system will determine their custody in many cases. So someone who serves life, you will always be close custody. That's just the system is designed that way. Depending on other inmates coming in the system, if they have a term of years, they also look at that. If their charges mitigate, all those things to determine their custody level.
And a lot of it or most of it is based on their adjustment, right? How they're adjusting.
Their adjustment, as well as their prison sentence, as well as
Right.
their prison.
But I mean, they're continuing, when you're reassessing a person's status and how they're going to live in the custody or that institution, they're looking at how they're adjusting to prison life over time, right?
Yes.
And they're looking for a continuous positive behavior on the part of the inmate, correct?
Correct. Starting from the reception center, because when they come in 6 to 12 weeks, they might not get to their permanent camp. So they are assigned a job even at a reception center. If you're there more than 10 weeks, you have to get a job assignment. So they actually start now assessing them even at the reception center pending going to their permanent facility.
So this to be, just to phrase it another way, they're looking at the sentence, they're looking at the history, but they're also looking at things like, do they have a high school degree, right?
Yeah, they look at their education. They verify that through
Right.
their database to make sure if they have any kind of education. They also gather their skills, any kind of employment, because when we get weekly I'm going to correct myself. When the Department of Corrections gets weekly allocations, it's like a factory line. On Mondays, they get an allocation list. We're flushing out 590 prisoners out of the system, but one facility needs 50 cooks. Another one might need 12 plumbers. No matter the custody level, depending on main institution, then we try, the Department of Classification team will try to fill those allocations because we want to empty the reception centers, but also the department needs to fill the vacancies and the needs for those facilities.
So a lot of it's need-based from what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes.
You spent, in this case with Mr. Gathright, an hour and a half with him, correct?
Yes.
And you've told us some of your impressions here a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just go through that with you. You found out at some point that he has a high school degree, correct?
Yes.
You found out that he had prior, I guess, worked in the catering industry, may have culinary skills or
Yes.
some level of culinary
He
skills.
worked at Oxford Country Club as a prep cook. He did some other work. During my interview, he did work in the hospitality industry,
At a country club.
country club in Oxford, Mississippi, I think it was. Yes.
And you found him to be very articulate, correct?
Correct.
He was very cooperative with you, is that correct?
Yes.
In fact, he graduated from Oxford High School in Mississippi, correct?
Yes. In 2023, I think. Yes.
He also worked for the Omni Hotel, is that right? In catering?
Let me double check. He didn't mention that. He did tell me he worked for Oxford Country Club, well, also a sushi place and Central Plate Catering Service, unless that was a contract with the Omni Hotel, which some of them do. Not familiar.
If you had said at a time in the past that he did work for the Omni Hotel, would it refresh your memory if I showed you that?
Sure.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
And it's page 23, counsel.
Let me see if I can find it. Oxford, Omni. Yeah, I did mention Omni, but in my notes, as you see, well,
Do you think that the Omni that you came up with may have been something someone told you maybe, even if it's not in your notes since you testified to it?
no,
in
I
your
really,
deposition?
and I don't even say it in Omni Hotel, but I don't know where that one came from. I'm trying to look at my
Okay.
notes. No, Central Plate Catering. I don't recall.
So he had experience working in catering,
And serving,
serving,
prep cook.
prep cook. Do you remember telling me in your deposition that I took of you that you were impressed by him
Yes.
and you found him to be a very mature person, a very mature young man?
Someone 20, yes, he came across very mature.
Now, when you worked for the Department of Corrections, you worked for a lot of institutions, a lot of correctional institutions, correct?
Yes,
And when I say worked for, all of that's the Department of Corrections,
yes,
statewide agency, right?
yes, sir.
Maintains our prison system. Is that correct? All right.
Yes.
So I think you said you worked at Tomoka, you worked at Martin. You mentioned Santa Rosa. You didn't work at Santa
No,
Rosa.
no, I
though,
worked
right?
at Polk CI, Polk
Polk
Corrections
CI.
too,
Okay.
Martin, Tomoka, Hernando.
Union Correctional and Florida State Prison, both located in Rayford or right there by Rayford. Familiar with them?
Yes, I
All
am.
right. You were never permanently assigned to either one of those, correct?
No,
You visited them as part of your job. You went there for training, I believe. You may have been there for other reasons, but you were never permanently assigned there.
never permanently assigned.
Never permanently assigned to death row, correct?
Correct.
And when you worked there, when you left in 06, death row was housed for men, was housed at Union, correct, in Rayford,
Yes,
and literally almost down the road at Florida State Prison, which is a prison that's actually called Florida State Prison, correct?
correct. FSP.
Right, FSP. Now death row is housed exclusively at Union Correctional, correct?
Yes,
You have not viewed the inside area of death row or had access to that in over 20 years, correct?
correct.
Death row conditions, would you agree with me that that is maximum solitary close custody?
It is maximum security, close custody. I don't know if the word solitary, that's a
All right.
word we don't use in the industry anymore because.
Right.
Right.
Well, the common meaning solitary, meaning that they are housed individually in their own cells, correct?
Yes,
You indicated earlier the cells are 6 feet by 9 feet, correct?
approximately, yes.
All right. And in death row, there are 6 wings, each with 2 levels, 8 cells per row. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my
right.
understanding.
You mentioned steel toilets and sinks. The toilet has no lid, correct?
Stainless steel toilet, yeah, no lids, industrial corrections toilets.
They have a steel bed with a thin mattress, correct?
Correct.
And they can have a radio if they wish, correct?
Also, they also, often many of them just use the tablets because you can get music on tablets.
The
as well.
tablets, all right. I'm going
Yes.
to talk to you about the tablet in a minute. They are issued tablets. Let's just go ahead and talk about it. They are issued tablets. The tablet is, it's like like it sounds. It's like a pad, electrical pad or tablet. That's
It's a hard book.
right. And it has limited content on it. You can read books on it. There are some programs you can watch on it, but there is availability to purchase additional things you can watch on it for money, correct?
Yes,
So you have to have that money in your commissary or canteen. Is that correct?
that is correct.
So somebody you know outside of prison has to put that or donate that or deposit that into your account.
To the inmate trust account, yes, sir.
They have no access to any kind of internet connection with that tablet, correct?
That is correct.
They are issued their own TVs. They are little 13-inch cubes, correct?
Yes.
And those work off of an antenna, correct?
Rabbit ears, as we often call it.
Just like the larger big flat screens that are mounted in the general population or I'm not saying that right. I know that's not the term.
The day
Open
rooms,
population.
in the day rooms.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to open population for non-death row. They have bigger TVs that are mounted that they watch communally, I guess.
Correct. It's general population.
Right. But with both of those, they're working, especially these little small TVs are just working off an antenna, right? Like
Yes.
little rabbit ears.
They're
Right?
the same channels that everybody else would have.
Just a few channels. They're not getting a streaming service or cable, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, their food, they are fed 3 times a day, correct?
Yes.
First, breakfast is at 5 a.m., correct?
Roughly, yes.
Lunch is from 10:30 to 11, is that right?
More or less. Yes.
Dinner from 4 to 4:30 p.m.
Yes.
Those meals are brought to them on a plastic tray, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And they are slid through and they eat them in their cell, correct?
Yes.
They don't leave their cell to go eat somewhere, correct?
That is correct.
And they are given what's called a spork,
Spork, yes.
a plastic spork, correct?
Yes.
That's all they're given. They're not
Yes.
given any cutlery of any kind, correct?
Absolutely no.
And that would be the 3 meals they're going to eat every day moving forward, correct?
Like
The
the
way
rest
they
of
eat 'em.
every inmate. Yes.
Those are prepared by institutional food service, correct?
Yes.
Is that other inmates?
Yes. Inmates prepare the meals.
So they're eating them when they're secured in their cells, correct?
Yep.
All right.
I think from time to time, keeping up with some of the changes, they might have 1 or 2 eat in the day room, the trustees helping, but majority of them eat in the cell.
Now, they're allowed to have snacks, correct?
Yes, commissary items, yes.
But they have to purchase those from the commissary
Correct.
with money deposited into that account. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. There are times when they're allowed out of that cell, correct?
Yes.
And you talked about that because there was a civil legal settlement back in 2022 that expanded their time out of the cells, correct?
Yes, sir.
They can go to what's called the day room, right?
Yes.
And that's every day, Monday through Friday for 3.5 hours, correct?
Yes.
And that is that entire row, so 8 or 7 inmates, correct?
7, 8 inmates in the same common area,
Right.
if they choose to leave the cell.
So the common area is basically a cell, just like the one they're in, that's in the middle of the row. That's an empty cell that has things in it like a kiosk, a TV, a card table, right?
Now, when you say the middle cell, you're talking about the day room environment?
The day room.
Yeah, it's sort of an area, but it's not a cell that everyone goes into. It's a common area.
It's about the size of a cell, though.
About
right?
the size, very small, but it's
Very
a common
small.
area where the officers are supervising them. They're not like in a cell.
So these inmates, during that time, they can also elect to go use one of the phones on the row, right?
Yes.
On that row. Or they can elect to take a shower, correct?
Yes.
To go have a shower. And like all the other, they get 3 showers a week, but they can elect to use that day room time to get a shower, right?
Yes.
The kiosk that is in that day room, there's a similar kiosk in their recreational area that they're allowed to go to during the week too, right?
I think there is, but I can't confirm that.
But the kiosk allows them to make purchases. It allows them to make phone calls with money.
I know the
Deposited
kiosks that you're referencing, my understanding, those kiosks, unless you're talking about the wall mounts, most of them are only there to communicate, get your balance on your inmate account, as well as order commissary.
order commissary. All right. So other than the day room time, if they're going to take a shower, they have to take it 3 times a week.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
They also have recreation time as well.
They do. So I want to talk to you about that real quick. That's 2 times a week for 3 hours, right?
Correct.
And I think there's about 20 inmates at a time that go out on that rec area.
Yeah, my understanding, they try to keep it at 15, but 20 is the max.
15 to 20. Okay, 20 is the max, right? And the rec area has a backboard,
Yes, they do.
and it has an area, a flat area there where they can shoot hoops, play basketball.
Yes, sir.
All right, but it's not full court.
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. And I think there's a dipping and chinning apparatus that they can share or utilize, correct?
Yes.
And it's open air.
Yes.
Visitation is on the weekend, if they're allowed to have visitation.
And during the week, I've visited many times and families do come up during the week as well.
That has to be pre-approved, correct?
By the warden, yes, sir.
But there are hours on the weekends from, I believe, 9 to 3 where they can go and be visited, correct?
Correct.
So other than what we've talked about, staying on their row where their cells are lined up and going to the day room or going to the rec area, anytime they leave that cell, they are shackled, correct?
Yes.
And that would include leg irons, waist chains, and cuffs to the waist chains, correct?
And a black box.
And a black box between the hands, right?
Yes.
So they're going to be walking like this,
Yes.
and they're going to be escorted anywhere else they go.
With 2 officers.
When they go to visitation, to visit someone on the weekend, they're escorted to a search room where they are searched and monitored, correct?
Yes. Going in and out.
And then they're allowed to go into this open area, which I think has a maximum of 22 or 23 inmates,
Correct.
where they can meet with their families.
Across from the table.
On average, inmates on death row spend 21 hours a day, on average, in their cell.
Well, depending on the week, on the day, it can be as less as 16 hours, but depending on if that's the day room, and also keep in mind, they can put a request to go to the library as well now, in which they have to be escorted. And they can also say they had a medical emergency. So I don't want to quantify that because every day is a different day. But
Right.
I would honestly say anywhere from 15 to 21 hours is about the average.
And no matter what, they are always under heavy surveillance, correct?
Yes, because of their custody level.
What is their custody level?
They are, any inmate who is sentenced to death row is maximum security level.
All right. And they are you talked about head counts in general population. The inmates on death row are counted hourly, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Every hour or at least every hour on the hour, correct?
They also have informal counts as well.
They have, you would agree with me, a strictly controlled daily routine, correct?
I would say yes.
All right. And there is no air conditioning on death row, correct?
Well, no. There is air conditioning on death row. As far as the housing units, not like a general population prison environment. We don't have death row. They do because of their housing category.
There's
Yes.
no AC, right? No air
Well,
conditioning.
they do have, I want to say not AC, but they do have some kind of better exhaust system because they spend the majority of their time in a housing environment versus a regular prison. They're allowed to go outside
But
onto the complex.
it's not air conditioning though, the way that
No.
we would understand air
No.
conditioning.
Not like
Okay.
we would do at home, no.
I believe you answered this, but to council's question, in the times that you told us that you've come in penalty phases and testified, I think you said it was 20 times over the last 5 years.
Approximately, yes.
And you've given similar testimony to what you gave today?
Yes.
About the conditions within the Department of Corrections?
Yes.
Okay. You've never testified in those cases for the state of the prosecution, correct?
No, never been asked.
And you indicated you are getting paid for your work in this case, and you told us your rates, $200, $225 for testimony. Have you tendered any invoices for your work?
Yes, I have.
What was the total?
The total for the First invoice was for 10 hours and a half, and it was approximately $1,800.
And how much additional work hours since then?
20 hours, totaling probably about $2,500 more.
Lastly, you found with the defendant, when you interviewed him over that hour and a half, that not only was he mature, but you gave the opinion that he could handle himself, correct?
Yes, based on his physical stature, his communication, how he was able to answer my questions, he seemed like.
Go ahead.
Okay, keep going.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm
No,
sorry.
keep
I'm sorry.
talking. He's listening.
All right, okay, he's listening, okay. So based on my observation, he didn't pose a concern of not living in general population, particularly at the jail, the way he's in general population and talking to the officers.
Right.
Yeah.
That wasn't my words, that was your words to me in the deposition, right? That he could handle himself.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'll tender the witness.
Okay, hold on, any cross, Mr. Hernandez, any cross?
No, thank you.
Any cross, Ms. Toomey? No. And Mr. Petrutis? Okay, redirect.
Just a couple follow-up questions, Mr. Bonasco. You said you've never been asked to testify for the state. Are you open to that if somebody were to contact you?
Yes, ma'am.
And backing up to some of the questions you were asked about your kind of employment and assignments over the last, several years, I believe that you said on direct that it's kind of common, this consulting area is somewhat common for somebody who may have your in-depth experience in the jail and prison system. Is that right?
Correct.
Being a retired warden, things like that?
Yes, many of us, because of our national affiliations with national corrections, local jail detentions, a lot of us who retire or have retired once come back, they seek that experience in many cases to get a bit of insight on how the systems work.
Not something that while you're working in that employment, for example, as the warden of a prison, you're not going to come and testify here, are you?
No.
When you were asked about some of your employment, you called them assignments. So I just wanted to clear it up a little bit. Some of the work that you've done, say in Texas and different counties, those are temporary assignments, is that right?
They're all at-will assignments.
So you're not taking a position somewhere and then just quitting?
No.
When you said that in speaking with Mr. Gathright, he was mature for a 20-year-old, was that based upon the conversation you had with him?
My conversation, how he was answering the questions, my years of experience, particularly his age, someone who was 20, was not sharing information, was communicating well, and wasn't disrespectful at all.
You weren't asked to evaluate his decision-making or impulsivity or anything like that, right?
No.
And you were in the jail, I believe, Hillsborough
Yes.
County Jail?
Yes.
Was that in a small interview room?
Yes, it was.
And I presume that you told him that his defense team sent you to see him, is that right?
Yes, I did.
You were asked about some areas of death row and when the inmates can go outside, and you were asked if they were open air, and you said yes, right?
Yes.
The law requires an amount of air and sunshine, is that correct?
Yes, sir, for our to have sun, also for national accreditation purposes.
When you say open air, does that mean that they're not surrounded by a fence or barbed wire and
No,
some?
it's a dog pen, as we call it. They're fenced in entirely. There's not an open fence, but everything's fenced in. You
So
just
it's
have access to sunlight.
Not some lovely outdoor recreational area?
No.
And about the air conditioning, I think you clarified it, but just so that we're clear, that when there's no AC or what we know as AC on death row, that's just where the inmates are housed, not the other facilities that they're able to go to, right?
Correct. So for clarification, when you say other, like facilities where lifers are assigned,
Well, just or on death row, if they were to go to a day room, they're going where everybody goes.
Yeah, pretty much those units, they're designed with heavy exhaust system, which runs the air more fluidly, more cooler than you would be at a regular prison where there is literally very little flow of air. So it's very hot. The environments are very different.
And the visits that a death row inmate has, Mr. Harmon kind of showed how they're shackled and they have the black box and they're in handcuffs. But those handcuffs are actually removed when they visit with their loved ones, right?
Yes, they are.
And they're allowed a hug and a kiss, I believe.
A hug and an embrace. That's it. Just like the rest of the inmate population.
When someone is sentenced to life without parole, is the goal of the Florida Department of Corrections to rehabilitate that person?
Objection outside the scope, Your Honor.
Overall, go ahead.
No, in my many years of experience as classification officer and supervisor, the standard practice across the industry, those who are serving a term of life, they're not the ones that we are focused on making an investment in. We look at those individuals who have a term of years, so we can provide them programs, betterment, peer-to-peer self-assessment programs, because the goal is to get them in a place so when they get released, they do not reoffend. And with a lifer, we are aware they will never leave the prison system. The only opportunity they will have is they end up at a prison in which maybe we informally as classification officers would keep a list. So we had a vacant seat in a particular program and they were behaving and following the rules, we would insert them so that seat wouldn't go to waste, but they're still required to work 60 hours a week. They do not get out of work. Versus those with a term of life, less than life, those individuals, if they're going to be getting released, that in many cases, the assignment for them will be education half a day and then work the other half.
So although we've heard that someone serving life without parole is required to work and then may have some opportunity to do programs or mentorships, the ultimate goal is still punishment, correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
Okay, very good. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. You're free to go. All right, we're just gonna take a quick 10-minute comfort break and then we'll be back, okay? Thank you.
All right.
So did that,
Ms. Finkelstein, who's gonna be your next
I
witness?
have two witnesses that should be, and I'm going to confirm now, should be on Zoom.
Okay.
We're just kind of